time for another one of those famous Spark film show tonal shifts. We're going to go from lovely, fluffy Bridget Jones into Blair Witch. Of course we are. We're going to hear a clip which kind of explains where we are when the film starts.
When James was 4 years old, his older sister disappeared while making a documentary near the town of Burkittsville, Maryland. Some of the footage shot by James's sister was later found. The final moments of it showed her going into a house, seemingly within the Black Hills forest. That area was extensively searched by police and FBI, but they could find no evidence of an existing house in those woods. Investigators concluded that James's sister might have vanished elsewhere, despite her crew's equipment and footage being found nearby. For as long as I've been friends with James, he's wondered what happened to her. His continued search to find closure and answers to his sister's disappearance is the subject of this documentary.
Ooh, exposition.
What? Is that like a Muppet noise?
That was Chewbacca.
Hey, I'd say a Kermit Blair Witch remake.
Yeah.
The Muppets do Blair Witch.
Somebody talk to me. Don't turn around.
Right then, this is the new film Blair Witch. It's 17 years. It's another film's been dragged from the past, kicking and screaming.
Indeed it is, and we've already sort of been accustomed to some fantastic marketing campaigns this year. I mean, we had Deadpool's just outright amazing marketing campaign, and we had the secret campaign with Cloverfield Lane, which nobody knew was a thing. It was Valencia originally, and then it was Cloverfield Lane, and it came out in a few months of being revealed. And now we've had Blair Witch, which was originally The Woods.
Yeah.
Now that's what it was. The new film by Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett, who are the director and writer dream team behind The Guest and Your Next. I haven't seen Your Next. I love The Guest though. It's such a good film. Dan Stevens is really intense and the soundtrack's amazing. And they're back with Blair Witch. It was originally The Woods, and then at Comic-Con when they showed it, the title card comes up and it's Blair Witch, and everyone freaks the flip out.
Yes.
Because it's a Blair Witch sequel after all of this time. And there already has been
there was already one
a Blair Witch, Book of Shadows, which is kind of not really remembered anymore because it was a bit naff supposedly, so I don't really want to. I mean, this film basically writes over it because I don't think you need to really reference it because it is a bit naff. Now, this film basically it follows the brother of the original documentarian Heather from the first one, and basically him and another group of college students back into they travel back into the Black Hills Woods forest in Maryland to uncover the mysteries surrounding the disappearance of James, the character's sister.
Why would you want to do that?
I don't know, because a film has to happen, doesn't it, really?
Good point.
There's no film without it.
Yes.
I mean, you have got to get around the sort of inherent thing that she's probably dead after all this time.
But you got to believe, haven't you?
Yeah. So everyone thinks that the disappearance of her sister and her group of friends was connected to the Blair Witch legend, which is obviously the core thing behind the Blair Witch Project. There's lots of theories around the first one. A lot of people don't really think that it was a witch or not. And I will outright say that if you do watch this one, I mean, because people saying like in the first one, people might have not been killed by the witch. It might have been Josh, the cameraman, instead. So it's a whole thing around that. But there is definitely a witch in this one. I think that's a fair way to say. So basically, they're back in the Black Hills Woods, which is only going to go well. And originally they start well. They get a couple of locals who help them to sort of go around the loop, but they seem a bit off. To be fair. A bit off. And they end up going into the dark and the winding woods that are in the forest. And eventually, that endless night is upon them, and it's all going a bit Pete Tong, isn't it?
And then it all ends fine, and they all live, and it's fine.
And they find Heather, and everything's fine, and she's been living out there as a hermit for 12 years.
Yeah. Except,
really, it seems the legend actually is true, because things start going sour, and their friends start dying and disappearing, and it all goes a bit sour.
Yes.
So basically, in Blair Witch, we have a lot of new technology. I think that's the best way to say it. I mean, the Blair Witch Project in 1999 was a phenomenon because it was a phenomenon of marketing.
It was so cheap as well.
Yeah, because people were convinced this was real. They had a lot of sort of viral sites, but this obviously the internet was sort of getting prominent in that.
The cast of that first film had all listed as dead on IMDb for a full year.
And basically the fact that they had that entire sort of connection to it, they had loads of mythology sites up and running. People were convinced that the mystery of the Blair Witch was true, and this really was found footage. And this sort of really really kick-started the genre into the mainstream. So the importance of it cannot be understated at all. I mean, it's up there with some of the most important films, definitely, because it kick-started an entire genre essentially into the mainstream, and you've got to sort of praise it for that. But now, with the time passing, we've had a lot of other found footage movies, some a mixed bag. We've had some great ones like Chronicle, like Cloverfield, like Wreck, and so, some that might have outdone Blair Witch in the time being. And now in 2016, do you think it's still relevant? I mean, do you think we still have a great found footage film?
No, not in the way this is. The big problem with this film is the editing. I think first of all, I'll praise it for its use of cameras, because it integrates new technology.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Yeah.
And it's it's kind of what you had to do. Problem is, if you've got so many cameras on the go and then you edit the footage together, it's not found footage. That's a documentary edited by somebody who found the footage. That's not found footage. So it's edited so fast as well.
Yeah.
It cuts from cameras as if it's like a vision mixer. As if it's like a guy behind a pane of glass watching this unfold in the woods, sitting there pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, drone, headset 1, headset 2, drone. It doesn't work. It's too snappy.
With that new sheen of polish, you do lose a lot of the realism.
Absolutely.
I mean, but I think, like, to be fair, the number one thing with this film is the fact that it does have extreme similarities in the DNA and the plot strands to the original. I mean, but that isn't a bad thing. We've seen that with Star Wars, seen that with Creed, seen that with so many films in the past couple of years, and the fact that it's becoming a more prominent thing. But it's not. I mean, it's sort of like the prequel, reboot, sequel, remakes, that whole thing that's going on in Hollywood. But there's enough about Blair Witch, for me at least, to stand on its own right and be an effective film by itself, because I think that the new technology that is brought in, like the drones, it does sort of make sense as a found footage film that it has, because it has these new earpiece cameras, so when the people are looking at each other, they can sort of emote more in a more sensible way than it was if there was just the singular cameras, so it does allow them a bit more sort of fluidity in that. I guess the drone wasn't used as much as I would like, but I think it was
kind of only there to give it the big tree shot, wasn't it, really? The big money shot.
But I do like sort of how it added to the eeriness of it all, and I think the score, while obviously
that's another thing, if it was a real found footage, there wouldn't be score, but there is, or at least I think there is, under all the sort of, because let's face it, most of the film is just a flood of noise. It's just noise, basically. It's just lots and lots of noise and assault on the ears, and I believe that some underneath there is score.
Well, the original soundtrack is Adam Wingard, the director.
Yeah, so that takes the realism totally away. But I think not just that, but also the fact that the performances are so Hollywood. I mean, the first one could be accused of being pretty overacted. This one is ridiculously overacted. Very much.
But I feel like to have a film, because the joy of the first one, which I've already watched a long time ago, and I feel like the joy of that was the fact that there was so much you didn't understand. You really didn't get the feel. I knew you weren't struck on it, because you just watched it recently. You weren't too enamoured with it.
Not particularly.
I just feel like a lot of the mystery of that was the fact that you never saw the witch properly, and in this one you do see the witch with a lot of sort of stolen glances. But the fact that they add quite a fair bit to the mythology of the Blair Witch legend, and the finale, the closing act is extremely, extremely scary. Like, I was really having the hairs on the standing up on my ends. Because it was
you're on your ends.
Yeah, no, but like, the head stands up.
I get what you're going about. It didn't really.
Yeah, it didn't. But like it was a really, really intense finale, and you really get to see why it can be effective, because Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett are extremely talented filmmakers.
Very good genre directors.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And while this is not as good as The Guest for me, I think that it is effective in its own right, because that last act with the House of the Blair Witch is really, really scary.
The tunneling sequence is pretty good. I think that works because it's a single camera, or is it two? No, I think it's two cameras. It is good, but the fact it's two cameras kind of takes away from it. I think there's some decent fleshy bits, some bits where the cacophony of noise kind of is a bit scary, because it's just like stop. But no, I think I've really got to get behind. To get behind, I've got to believe in it, and I didn't. And it's kind of the same. It's not as good as the first one either.
Yeah, it's clearly not as good as the first one. But I think
no, I still couldn't get behind it.
There's enough to it for me that it can stand on its own, because that last act is absolutely ridiculously intense for me.
It's intense.
I thoroughly enjoyed that part.
The whole thing is kind of a bit like an Arbed and Nadia documentary. It's constantly like, we're making documentary. Look, we're making documentary. We're making documentary. It's just kind of like, yeah, okay, we get it. This is a documentary. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I would. It was fine in the moment. I thought it was all right. I wasn't particularly scared by it. and it hasn't stuck with me. I'd say of the horror films in cinemas now, Don't Breathe. Definitely go see Don't Breathe.
I think it continues the strong year very, very well. I think
it's alright.
Go see them both.